Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyana Gunana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Praptasya Kalyana Gunana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vande Guru Shri Charanara Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu ki Ananitya Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shringaratanama Diramajanado Shri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Shringaratanama Diramajanado Juktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasadam Satvana Truptan Hari Bhakta Shangan Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasadam Satvana Truptan Hari Bhakta Shangan Kridaiva Trupti Bhajato Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Shri Radhikama Gavayara Para Madhura Leela Guna Rupa Namna Shri Radhikama Gavayara Para Madhura Leela Guna Rupa Namna Pratikshana Svadanalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Ne kunjayono ratikirisi vyai Jajali Yukti Apekshaniya Nikunjayono Tatrati Daksha Ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Sakyadhari Dvena Shamasta Shastri Uktastatha Bhavyataiva Sadhavi Sakyadhari Dvena Kintu Prabhorja Priya Eva Tasya Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Bande Guru Shri Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Jayam Stuvam Tasya Yasastin Sandhyam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasastrin Sandhyam Bande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Bande Guru Shri Charanara Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunavadi Pachatya Deshatarine Namaste Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunavadi Pachatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama, Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama, Gopal Govindaram Shrimadhusudan, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda, Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna, Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhav Radha Nil Madhav Radhe Jayo Jagannatha Jayo Baladeva Jayo Subhadrama Jayo Sudansha Chakra Jayo Sitaram Jayo Sitaram Sitaram Jayo Lakshman Hanuman Nitai Gaur Haribo 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo 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 Param Sakravaja Kacharya Suttara Sarasishmat ISKCON Pratishtha Vividi Samstavakacharya Vaishnava Siramani Gaura Priyajan Krishna Prima Bhakti Rata Patita Pavana Divine Grace Abhacharvinna Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai Shri Gaurya Guru Varga Patitu Dhari Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhakti Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhakti Dasa Gunasat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासारि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय जय प्रेम नाम संकीर्तन के जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिदानंद स्मरण गौर चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि महावृंद अवतार की जय गौर के प्रमधानिनम संकीर्तन जय की जय जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय बृहद मृदंग ट्रांसलेट तो बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपुत राधा कुंसम कुंज गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय श्री ब्रजभम वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय तेलो श्री राधा नील माधव की जय श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्र धाम की परम करुणा श्री गौर निताय की जय श्री पुरुषोत्तम चित्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशन करने सिंहरे भगवान की जय गंगा माँ जमुना माई की जय तुलसी महारानी वृंदी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय बोलो श्री मति राधा रानी की जय समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय निताय गौरी प्रमानंद all glory to somebody all glory to somebody all glory to somebody all glories all glories to Shri Guru Shri Guru
नमस्ते नरसिंहाय नमस्ते नरसिंहाय प्रह्लादलाददायिने हिरण्याकाशीपूर्वक्षः शिलटं कानखालाये इतो नरसिंहो परतो नरसिंहो यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहो
जतो जतो यामि ततो नरसिंहो
हे नरसिंहो हृदये नरसिंहो नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे कवकरकमलवरे नखा अद्भुतशृङ्गा ललिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे करकमलवरे नखा अद्भुतशृङ्गा ललिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जनसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव सिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज ओ प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज निताय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव प्रभुपाद की जय।
श्री वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रिय के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादि देवी सत्तवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी बाई प्रिय के सब सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादि देवी सत्तवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रिय के सब सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रादि देवी सत्तवताय नमो नमः। जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी की जय जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावा अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावा अभिलाषी।
ये तुम्हार शरण लो तारा वंश पूर्ण हो
जे तुम्हारो शरणाला तारा वांछा पूर्ण।
कृपा कोरे कोरो तारे वृंदावनवासी
तुम्हें कृपा करे करो तरे वृंदावनवासी।
मोरा अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियोवा
मोरा अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियावा।
नयने हरिबो सदा युगल रूप राशि
अभिनयाने रिवा सदा जुगाल रूप राशि।
दास को ये नमो राहो
दीन कृष्ण दास का ये नाम
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा नवासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा नवासी
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
कानि कानि पापानि ब्रह्म कनिशा तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
यानि कानि पापानि ब्रह्म कनिशा तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani,
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinde Devi, Jaya Vrinde Devi, Jaya Vrinde Devi, Jaya Vrinde Devi,
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada,
Jai Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Jai Prabhupada.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev,
Jai Jai Gurudev, 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 Jai Jai Gurudev. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Pradevi Sattavatai Namo Namah. Vrindai Tulasi Bai Priyai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Pradevi Sattavatai Namo Namah. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Pradevi Sattavatai Namo Namah. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Oh Tulasi, beloved Krishna, my desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Both of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision of always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavadamsas of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very full and lowly servant Krishna praise. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Srimati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jai. Chaito Darpanamajanam Pavamahadava Shri Akari Vachantika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Padipadam Purnamrita Sadhanam Sarvatmasnam Param Param Vijayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Nam Pariyabdha Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamita Shvanena Kala Ita Dushitava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamapi Durdhaiva Midrisham Ya Janinanuraga Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Saishuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sada Hari Nadhanam na Janam na Sundarim Kavitam va Jagadishaka Maye Mama Janmani Janmanishari Bhavata Bhakti Rahaitu Kitvai Oinandatanu Jakinkaram Patitamma Vishame Bhavambudho Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Sthita Dhuli Sadrisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galarashru Dharaya Vadanam Gadu Gadharudaya Gira Pulakai Nichitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahane Bhavishyati Jugaitam Nimishena Chakrusha Pravusaitam Sunyaitam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Viraename Aslishava Padaratam Pinashtumam Adarshnar Marmahatam Karotuva Jata Tathava Vidadhatulam Patu Matpranathastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jai Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayati Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratishe Namo Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devan Gaurvani Pracharine Nivishesha Srimnavadi Vatsyatyari Shatarine. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditioned life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names. But I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a lower than straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotion, service, birth to birth. O son of Maharajananda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me out from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the real lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 20 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and sure remains so, even if he sunders me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. Blaspheme with devotees who dedicate life or propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the names of demigods, our Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic scriptures or scriptures in pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnavas, devotion of the Lord. They are just like desired trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Bancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibho Namo Namah. Jai Ananta Kocha Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Shri Guru Vandan Mangala Charan Ki Jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshuran Militam Jena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandiyam Shri Guru Shri Jotapara Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vintam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamcha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shmati Bhakti Vedanta Saminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devim Gaurvani Pracharine Nivishesha Sunnavadi Patsatyari Satarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shmati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varsabhanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdhaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhurjojala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravane Shri Murthaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virodhapo Siddhanta Dvantarine Namaguru Kishoraya Sakchavera Murtaye Vipralambar Sambodhi Paramujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchit Ananda Namine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Virbhava Vamiswam Nirdesha Sajana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Sri Jagannathayate Namaha Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurati Namaha Panchatattvamakam Krishna Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavatara Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratupangor Mama Mandamatirgati Matsarvasya Padambo Jurada Madanamonam Divya Vindaranya Kalpadumadha Shmaranagara Shmasanastu Shmaradha Shila Govinda Devo Krishtali Visheva Mano Shmarami Shmanurasara Sarambi Vamshvatatatastita Karshan Venuswana Gopir Gopinatakshri Eshtuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jai Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Nadirati Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Sadmasukalpa Riksha Laksavritesa Surabhirabi Palyanta Lakshmi Sahasra Satasan Brahma Sevyamanam Govinda Madhipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Konanda Madhavindam Alo Daksham Darhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Pakoti Kamaniya Visesa Sobam Govinda Madhipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kalasa Gudam Kuraya Keli Kalavilasam Shamam Chibangalalita Nita Prakasam Govinda Madhipurisham Tamaham Bhajamangani Asya Sakalendri Ritimanti Pasyanti Banti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrasya Govinda Madhi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupa Madhyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabha Madurlabha Matma Bhakto Govinda Madhi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manasomani Pungamanam Sopyastiyat Prapadisimya Vichinti Tatve Govinda Madhi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitum Jagadanda Kotim Yes Jakti Rasta Jagadanda Chayadanta Adanta Rasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govinda Madhi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manachasthataiva Samprapya Rupa Mahimasana Anabusa Sutaryam Eva Nigamais Parpitas Pradanti Govinda Madhi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasarpati Bhavitabis Tabirya Eva Nijarupa Daya Kalabi Goloka Eva Navasata Kilatma Bhuto Govinda Madhi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanina Santaksa Devi Desa Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Chintya Gunaswarupam Govinda Madhi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Mainatistana Avatar Makarod Bhuvanesa Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhava Paramampamam Yo Govinda Madhi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Pavavuto Jagananda Koti Koti Svasesa Vasadadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahman Iskalamanantam Ashesa Bhutam Govinda Madhi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Mayahi Yasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Tragunya Tad Visaya Vidi Vitayamanam Sadvavalambi Parasatvam Visuddha Satvam Govinda Madhi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasaya Prani Nam Pratifilam Smaratam Upetya Lilahi Tena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govinda Madhi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Nam Ninjidam Nitarichitasya Devi Maheswari Dama Sute 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 Prabhavani Jaya Vyatasya Yena Govinda Madhi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shastista Te Pralaya Sadhava Sakti Reka Jaya Vyasya Bhuvanani Vivarti Durga Chanurapla Vyasya Chitesta Tesa Govinda Madhi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Chiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesi Yoga Sanjaya Tena Hitata Pritakasti Hitu
Jaya Sambutam Apitata Sampaitikaya Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Departure Vidya Santarma Vipeta Dipayate Vite Samana Dharma Yes Tadri Geva Hicha Vishnu Tayali Bhati Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Akarna Narla Vajali Bhajatismi Yoga Nidramananta Jagadanda Sarvamakuba Adhara Sakti Mavalami Param Samurtim Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yes Yaikin Isvasit Kalamatavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilija Jagadanata Vishnu Mahansaya Kalabi Seso Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Basmanya Tasma Sakalation Jesu Tejas Vyam Kiyat Prakatayata Vitatra Tatra Brahmaya Isi Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yapada Pala Vyugam Vinadaya Kumbadvande Purnama Samaya Sikanadi Raja Vignam Vihantam Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Agni Mayika Ganamal Marudisascha Kalas Tatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vivanti Visanti Amcha Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yas Chaksuresa Savita Sagalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Sesa Teja Yasyagaya Brahmati Sambrita Kalachakro Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Papa Nichaya Sutayas Tapamsi Brahmadi Kita Patakavati Asta Jivahaya Data Matari Bhavava Kadabhava Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrindu Gopam Atamenda Mahoswakarma Bandana Rupa Valabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nida Kinchirupati Bhajam Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Kro the Kama Sajat Pranayadi Bitti Vatsaya Moha Guru Guru Vasevya Bhava Sanchintya Tasya Sadhusintan Mahaparete Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpatara Vodrumabhu Mishchitamani Kanamayitam Amritam Kataganam Nadyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriya Saki Chirinandam Jyotiparam Apidas Tadaswadya Pichasa Yatra Shirabi Swaviti Shirabi Vyashta Suma Nimesar Dakyavava Jitina Yatripisama Bhaje Swita Dvipam Tamaham Iagola Kamitiam Vedanta Ste Santakshati Varachara Kantipa Guru Shikuru Vasika prayers Kije. The spiritual message receiving benediction from the ocean mercy. This is the cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. However, my respectful based on the lotus feet, such spiritual masters, the ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always glad by the sanctified movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow in his eyes like waves. For my respectful based on the lotus feet, such spiritual master. Spiritual master is always engaged in the temple with Sri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. He dresses deities in beautiful clothes and on his clean air temple and perform other similar worship of the Lord. However, for my respectful based on the lotus feet, is such spiritual master. Spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. However, for my respectful based on the lotus feet, is such spiritual master. Spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited consequential pastimes, erotic and Madhav, and their qualities, names, adorn. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment of my respectful based on the lotus feet. Such spiritual master. Spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting gopis who at different times with different tastes are arranged for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan. For my most humble based on the lotus feet is such spiritual master. Spiritual master be honored as the most supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all real scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, for my respectful based on the lotus feet is such spiritual master, the ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting by the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advance. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful based on the lotus feet of my spiritual master. His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 7, Text number 6. Bhagavan Eka Evaisya Sarvashetresva Bastitaha Amusyadur Bhagavatam Va. I'm sorry. Amusyadur Bhagavatam Va. Kleso vai karma bhikuta. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Eka, alone. Eva Esa, all these. Sarva, all. Shetresu, in the living entities. Avastita, situated. Amusya, of the living entities. Durbhagavatam, misfortune. Va, either. Klesha, miseries. Va, or. Karma bihi, by activities. Kuta, what for? What? Okay. It's all right. It's good to go over things. Okay, text 7. Etasmin me mano vidvan kidyate jnana sankate tanna para nuda vivo kasmalam manasam mahat. Etasmin, in this, me, my, mana, mind, vidvan, O learned one, kidyate, is troubling, angyana, nescience, sankate, in distress, tat, therefore, na, my, paranuda, clear up, vibho, O great one, kasmalam, illusion, manasam, relating to the mind, mahat, great, O great and learned one. Okay. Translation. O great and learned one, my mind is greatly illusioned by the distress of this nescience. I therefore request you to clear it up. So this is a bona fide request, because the spiritual master is able to answer these questions. Therefore, the disciple has confidence that by asking a significant question, they'll get the proper answer. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Such mental bewilderment as represented here by Vidura takes place for some living entities, but not for everyone. For if everyone were bewildered, there would be no possibility of a solution by higher personalities. Text number 8. Shisuka uvacha sa itam chodita shatra tattva jigna sunamuni pratyaha bhagavat chitta smayan ivagata smaya. Sri Sukha Uvacha. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, Sa, he, Maitreya Muni, itam, in this way, chodita, being agitated, shatra, by Vidura, tattva jignasuna, by one who was anxious to inquire to know the truth. Muni, the great sage, pratyaha, replied, Bhagavat Chitta, God conscious, smayan, wandering, eva, as if, gata smaya, without hesitation. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O King, Maitreya, being thus agitated by the inquisitive Vidura, at first seemed astonished, but then he replied to him without hesitation, since he was fully God conscious. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Since the great sage Maitreya was filled with God consciousness, he had no reason to be astonished at such contradictory questions by Vidura. Therefore, although as a devotee he externally expressed surprise, as if he did not know how to reply to those questions, he immediately became perfectly settled and properly replied to Vidura. Yasmin vigyate sarvam evam vigyatam bhavati. Anyone who is a devotee of the Lord knows about the Lord to some extent, and devotional service to the Lord makes him able to know everything by the grace of the Lord. Although a devotee may apparently express himself to be ignorant, he is full of knowledge in every intricate matter. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Text number 9. Maitreya uvacha Sayam Bhagavato Maya Yam Nanyena Virudyate Ishvarasya Vimuktasya Karpanyam Utabandhanam. Maitreya Uvacha. Maitreya said, Sa iyam, such a statement, Bhagavata, of the personality of Godhead, Maya, illusion, Yat, that which, Nayena, by logic, virudyate, becomes contradictory. Ishvarasya, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vimuktasya, of the ever liberated. Karpanyam, insufficiency. Uta, as also what to speak of. Bandhanam, bondage. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sri Maitreya said, certain conditioned souls put forward the theory that the Supreme Brahman, or the Personality of Godhead, is overcome by illusion or maya, and at the same time they maintain that He is unconditioned. This is against all logic. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So now we're going to get seriously into the answer of the original question by Vidura. And that is, the pure soul is pure consciousness and is never out of consciousness, either due to circumstances, times, situations, dreams, or other causes. How then does he become engaged in nescience? This is the question, Canto 3, Chapter 7, verse number 5. And now he's going to go deeply into the answer. Purport. Sometimes it appears that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is 100% spiritual, cannot be the cause of the illusory potency which covers the knowledge of the individual soul. But factually, there is no doubt that the illusory external energy is also part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. When Vyasadeva said, now the Christians got confused on this point. They claim that there is God and there's a devil. And the devil is the cause of illusion and misery, and God is the cause of good things. So right there, they got it wrong. And here it says, sometimes it appears that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is 100% spiritual, cannot be the cause of the illusory energy which covers the knowledge of the individual soul. But factually, there's no doubt that the illusory external energy is also part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Okay, that settles that. When Vyasadeva realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he saw the Lord along with his external potency, which covers the pure knowledge of the individual living entities. Why the external energy acts in this way may be considered as follows, as analyzed by the great commentators like Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Jiva Goswami. So it would have been much better that the Christians studied Srimad Bhagavatam rather than studying Greek philosophy. They would not have made this colossal mistake. But, of course, they ignored Vedic knowledge. Now, it's not that Vedic knowledge wasn't available to them. There were many relationships between India at that time, this is 2,500 years ago, and then 2,000 years ago for Christianity, but 2,500 years ago, the Greeks had regular contact with India. So there was possibility for them to not accept Greek philosophy, but to go to the source, which was Vedic knowledge. But they didn't do that. And that's why they got so many fundamental points wrong. So it says here in the first canto, 7th chapter, 4th verse, it says, talking about Vyasadeva, so it says, text 3, 173, in that place, Srila Vyasadeva, in his own ashrama, which was surrounded by berry trees, sat down to meditate after touching water for purification. So, why is Vyasadeva doing this? Because his guru asked him to do it. Who was his guru? Narada Muni. Under instructions of his spiritual master, Sri Narada Muni, Vyasadeva concentrated his mind in that transcendental place of meditation. So then, that verse, Bhakti Yogena Manasi Samyak Pranihite Male Apasyat Purusham Purnam Mayam Chatad Apasrayam. And then translation says, thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotional service, bhakti yoga, without any tinge of materialism. And thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead, along with his external energy, which was under full control. That is a very important verse. First Canto, 7th chapter, 4th verse. And this is directly being referred to in the purport that we're reading today in the third chapter, third canto, 7th chapter, verse number 9. And you see how all the major themes are in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, but then they're being explained much more in depth as we go along in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The next 9 cantos will be explaining these fundamental points that are made in the first canto and giving a tremendous amount of evidence. So already in 174 it says, perfect vision of the absolute truth is possible only by the linking process of devotional service. So unless one comes to devotional service, they'll never understand these points. That's the problem with the Mayavadis, the atheists, and the speculator scientists and philosophers. They don't really engage in devotional service. The Mayavadis may make a show of it, but they're not serious about it. The atheists make no attempt at all. And of course, the speculator, philosophers, and scientists are usually against studying the Vedas. Some of them may do it, but most of them are against it. So perfect vision of the absolute truth is possible only by the linking process of devotional service. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. One can perfectly realize the absolute truth personality of Godhead only by the process of devotional service. And one can enter into the kingdom of God by such perfect knowledge. So that's Bhaktya Mam Abhijananti Yavanyas Chasmi Tatvata Tato Mam Tatvato Gyatva Vishatetat Anantaram. This 18th chapter and 55th verse. Imperfect realization of the Absolute by the partial approach of the impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma does not permit anyone to enter into the kingdom of God. So that means the Mayavadis will never enter Vaikuntha or Goloka. They'll maybe, some of them will attain Brahman realization, but they will eventually fall down. And because they don't have ashraya, they don't have the refuge of being on a transcendental planet within the great expansiveness of the Brahmajyoti. So therefore they stay only in the Brahman effulgence and they fall down. And Prabhupada says that Brahman effulgence is already fallen state. It's already in a fallen state. Why? Because there's no devotional service there. So that means that they're going to fall down eventually. Imperfect realization of the Absolute by the partial approach to impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma does not permit anyone to enter into the kingdom of God. Narada advised Srila Vyasadeva to become absorbed in transcendental meditation on the personality of Godhead and his activities. That's why we have deities, to give us a chance to focus our whole consciousness on the transcendental form of the Lord. The absolute vision is the personality of Godhead, as it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Vasudeva Savamiti. So the absolute vision is not the Brahman effulgence. It is the form of Radha and Krishna. In the Upanishads also it is confirmed that Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, is covered by the golden glowing Hiranmayana Patrena veil of impersonal Brahman, and when that curtain is removed by the mercy of the Lord, the real face of the Absolute is seen. So this is Isha Upanishad 15th chapter. Isha Upanishad 15th mantra, which says, Hiranmayana Patrena Satyasya Bhutam Bhukam Tatpam Pusam Apavrinu Satya Dharmaya Dristaya. and also the 16th chapter, the 16th mantra, which says, Pusaneka Seyamasriya Prajapatya Vyuha Rasmit Samaha Tejaha Tejo Yat Te Rupam Kayana Tamam Tate Pasyami Yos So Purushaha Sohamasmi. So, the translation of these two verses is the following. O my Lord, this is mantra 15, sustainer of all that lives, your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee. And in mantra 16 says, O my Lord, O primeval philosopher, maintainer of the universe, O regulating principle, destination of the pure devotees, well-wisher of the progenitors of mankind, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so that I can see your form of bliss. You are the eternal supreme personality of Godhead, like unto the sun, as am I. Well, when it says like unto the sun, as am I, that's a very significant statement, because you've heard the Mayavadis, they say, Soham. Have you ever heard that? Soham. Right? What does that mean? Well, they misinterpret that by saying, I am that. Right? So if they come to the point of merging into the Brahma Jyoti, they identify with it. Or if they follow Patanjali's yoga system, they come to the point of seeing the Paramatma. Instead of serving the Paramatma, they say, I am the Paramatma. So both ways, there's two types of merging. And the Mayavadis say urging and merging, but actually it's two types of merging. One is into the Brahma Jyoti, and the other one is into the body of Paramatma. Both are types of mergings. Like Sisupala, he merged into the body of the Lord. But in the case of Mayavadis, they merge into the Brahma Jyoti. Both are types of merging, and both end up in what you would call a dead end. Now, Brahma Jyoti or Paramatma are not dead ends in themselves, but it's a dead end for a person who has a wrong conception. So therefore it's possible for them to fall down, even from those exalted positions. So, and it says here, let's go back to the 16th mantra. It says, the Lord is the destination of the pure devotees, the well-wisher of the progenitors of mankind. Please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so that I can see your form of bliss. You are the eternal supreme personality of Godhead, like unto the sun as am I. So now if we read part of the purport of mantra 15, it says, first of all, it says a lot of things, but near the end, it's going to say, it says, the Brahma Jyoti is Krishna's effulgence, and this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 14:27, as well as Brahma Samhita 5:40. Okay, what does 5:40 say? Yasya prabha prabhavato jagadanta kotim kotisvasesa vasudadi vibhuti benam tad brahma niskalamanantam asesa bhutam govindam adipurisham tamaham bhajami. In the millions and millions of universes, there are innumerable planets, and each and every one of them is different from the others by its cosmic constitution. All of these planets are situated in a corner of the Brahma Jyoti. This Brahma Jyoti is but the personal rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, whom I worship. So now Prabhupada writes, this mantra from Brahma Samhita is spoken from the platform of factual realization of the Absolute Truth. And the Shruti mantra of Sri Ishopanishad under discussion. Shruti mantra means it is mantra from bona fide Vedic literature. Shruti means bona fide Vedic literature, right? Confirms this mantra, under discussion, confirms this mantra as a process of realization. The Ishopanishad is a simple prayer to the Lord to remove the Brahmajyoti so that one can see his real face. This Brahmajyoti effulgence is described in detail in several mantras of the Mundaka Upanishad. See, now he's going from one authoritative Shruti, meaning Vedic literature, to another one. Now he's coming to the Mundaka Upanishad, 2.2.10 to 12. Hiranmaye pare kose virajam brahmaniskalam, and so forth. And then translation. In the spiritual realm, beyond the material covering, is the unlimited Brahman effulgence, which is free from material contamination. That effulgent white light is understood by transcendentalists to be the light of all lights. In that realm, there is no need of sunshine or moonshine, fire or electricity for illumination. Indeed, whatever illumination appears in the material world is only a reflection of that supreme illumination. That Brahman, so that confirms that what we're seeing in the material world as far as the sunlight is actually a reflection of the sunlight of the Brahmajyoti, which is entering into the material world. Because the Brahmajyoti is the substratum of both the spiritual world and the material world. And it's an expansion of Krishna. So in the material world, Krishna is present everywhere in two ways, through his Brahmajyoti and through his Paramatma expansion, or Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. So we see that the Lord is everywhere, and therefore he is everything. He is the cause and he's the effect of everything, because he's also the cause of the five great Mahabhutas, earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then the subtle elements of mind and intelligence and ego. So therefore, he is everything, but everything is not him. Because if you say he is everything and stop there, then you could get a dog off the street, put him on the altar, and start worshiping him as Krishna. But no, he says he is everything, but everything is not him. This is Achintya Veda Abheda Tattva, simultaneously and considerably one and different. See? So, therefore, you can't worship a dog, because although the dog is made of the energy of the Lord, including the soul, which is an energy of the Lord, including the body, which is made of the inferior energy of the Lord, but Krishna is different also. He's a different individual than the dog. But he's simultaneously one and different. So you can see how hard it is for materialistic people to understand such a concept. Devotees can understand it as long as they're becoming purified every day by hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and chanting their rounds, etc. But materialists cannot understand this. They can try, but they say it's contradictory. They have mutually contradictory qualities, which is impossible for a human being. Therefore, we say it's nonsense for them. Right? So what is this Brahmajyoti doing exactly? What has different functions? But one of the functions is obstructing non-devotees from seeing the Lord, because they're blinded by the rays of the Brahmajyoti. So therefore, you have to ask the Lord to please remove the covering of Brahmajyoti so that you can see his smiling face. That's what these two mantras, 15 and 16, are saying. They're supplicating the Lord to remove this veil of light that is blinding their eyes. Perfect knowledge, in other words, that supreme Brahman effulgence spreads throughout both the material and spiritual skies. Perfect knowledge means knowing Krishna as the root of this Brahman effulgence. So obviously the Mayavadis don't accept that Krishna is the source of the Brahmajyoti. So therefore they're ignoring Srimad Brahma Samhita, they're ignoring statements in the Ishopanishad. They're ignoring statements in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The knowledge can be gained from such scriptures as Srimad Bhagavatam, which perfectly elaborates the science of Krishna. In it doesn't say who perfectly elaborates the mythology of Krishna. No, it's not a mythology, it's a science, and real science, not junk science. In Srimad Bhagavatam, the author, Srila Vyasadeva, has established that one will describe the Supreme Truth as Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan, according to one's realization of him. Srila Vyasadeva never states that the Supreme Truth is a jiva, an ordinary living entity. The living entity should never be considered the all-powerful Supreme Truth. If he were the Supreme, he would not need to pray to the Lord to remove his dazzling cover so that the living entity could see his real face. So Ishopanishad is actually a person in the spiritual world. And he's praying, please, Krishna, remove this blinding effulgence that's stopping me from seeing your smiling face. The conclusion is that one who has no knowledge of the potencies of the Supreme Truth will realize the impersonal Brahmajyoti. Similarly, when one realizes the material potencies of the Lord, but has little or no information of the spiritual potencies, he attains Paramatma realization. Thus, both Brahman and Paramatma realizations, the Absolute Truth, are partial realizations. Okay, let me read that again. The conclusion is that one who has no knowledge of the potencies of the Supreme Truth will realize the impersonal Brahman. Similarly, when one realizes the material potencies of the Lord, but has little or no information of the spiritual potencies, he attains Paramatma realization. Thus, both Brahman and Paramatma realization, Absolute Truth, are partial realizations. However, when one realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, see, this is why Sisupala merged into the body of Krishna. And this is why Mayavadis merge into the Brahmajyoti, because they have incomplete knowledge. That's why there's a saying in English, little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Always remember that. Little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Therefore, you should come every day to class so that you don't end up with little knowledge. Just like just 2 days ago, proof came that smoking marijuana is not relieving pain or stress or anything. It's the same as taking a what you call a medicine, a so-called medicine that has no effect, right? So they just proved that the marijuana has no real effect on dissipating pain or anything like that. So I mean the whole hoax that there's medical marijuana, it's a hoax. It's not a fact. Huh? Yeah, they build a whole industry on it. Why don't you look it up? That marijuana is no better than what is that? Than when they do these experiments, they call double-blind experiments. So, to one half of the people, they give a real, let's say, medicine, and to the other half, they give a placebo. Is it a placebo? It's a false medicine. They claim it to be the medicine, but it's not. So they see the effect between the half that don't get the real thing and the half that get the real thing. It's called a placebo. Look that word up. So now they say they have evidence that marijuana is no more effective than a placebo. Do you see it? Yeah. Okay. What does it say? Give him the microphone.
So it says there is no evidence that marijuana or CBD oil treats pain better than placebo. Major review
placebo,
finds.
yeah.
Let's see, was it
And that was what, just a couple days
couple
ago.
of days ago? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 2 days.
You see how people are able to create a hoax and convince hundreds and millions of people. And then they changed the law. Marijuana was illegal in the United States, right? Became legal in the 1930s. And then since then, up until just like 5-6 years ago, it was illegal. It's still illegal according to the federal government, but certain states, crazy states like Washington and Colorado, may have made it legal, right? Even though it's federally illegal. And how did they do it? They did it by this word jugglery. Right? You have something else?
I'm just looking for more detail here.
Okay, so I'll continue if you find it. So, it says here, the living entity should never be considered the all-powerful supreme truth. If he were the supreme, he would not need to pray to the Lord to remove his dazzling cover so that the living entity could see his real face. The conclusion is that one who has no knowledge of the potencies of the supreme truth will realize the impersonal Brahman. Yeah, like for example, you can take LSD and you'll get a very short realization of Brahman. I can tell you that from personal experience. But it's very short, and when you come down from the drug, you forget, basically. I mean, you know you saw something, but it doesn't have any effect on your life. Right? So, yeah, that's why it says here, the conclusion is that one who has no knowledge of the potencies of the supreme truth will realize the impersonal Brahman. Now, does someone actually see the Brahman or merge into it? No, but you get a glimpse of some light, definitely, by taking that drug, and also by taking mescaline, which is another. It's a natural drug. The LSD is not a natural drug. Mescaline it's extracted from a plant in South America. Anyway, similarly, when one realizes the material potencies of the Lord, but has little or no information of the spiritual potencies, he attains Paramatma realization. Thus, both Brahman and Paramatma realizations of the Absolute Truth are partial realizations. However, when one realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, in full potency, after the removal of the Hiranmaya Patra, that is, the effulgence of the Brahma Jyoti, after the Lord removes the effulgence to let his devotee have a glimpse at him, one realizes Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Lord Shri Krishna, who is known as Vasudeva, the son of Vasudeva, is everything. Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. He is Bhagavan. The root and Brahman and Paramatma are his branches. In the Bhagavad Gita, 6.46 and 47, there's a comparative analysis of the three types of transcendentalists. Okay, so these are the last two verses of the 6th chapter. There is an analysis of the three types of transcendentalists: the worshippers of the impersonal Brahman, Jnanis; the worshippers of the Paramatma feature, the yogis; and the devotees of Lord Shri Krishna, the bhaktas. It is stated there that the Jnanis, those who have cultivated Vedic knowledge, are better than ordinary fruitive workers, that the yogis are still greater than the Jnanis, and that among all yogis, those who constantly serve the Lord with all their energies are the topmost. Yeah. In summary, a philosopher is better than a laboring man. A mystic is superior to a philosopher. And of all the mystic yogis, he who follows bhakti yoga, constantly engaging in the service of the Lord, is the highest. The Sri Upanishad directs us toward this perfection. This is amazing. You see how Prabhupada is completely, let's say, he's completely on target. He does not deviate. He doesn't say one thing somewhere and then something else somewhere else. He's always on subject, but he keeps giving more and more information of that subject. Say. And that is why we should hear every day these two scriptures. Why? Because otherwise things will easily be misrepresented to us by clever speculators. You're always going to meet a person who's more clever than you in deception, not in Krishna consciousness, but in deception. And they know how to juggle words and make things seem real that are not real. And be very convincing and speak as if they're very logical, and using big words and so forth, using examples that fool you. But we should not be in the least bit fooled by these people. Yoginam apisarve samad gatinantaratmara shadavam bhajates yomam same yuktatamomatak. And of all yogis, those are the mystic yogis. And in the previous verse, tapasvi byo diko yogi yani byo pi mato dika karmi yas chadiko yogi tasmat yogi bavarjuna. So, what Prabhupada says, the last two verses of the 6th chapter, 46 and 47, are giving a summary comparison between a jnani, a mystic yogi, and the bhakta, the devotee. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances be a yogi. But amongst the yogis, the greatest is the bhakta. Right? So 46 is comparing the fruitive worker, which is on the lowest rung, to the empiricist, the person who analyzes nature but refuses to go beyond what he's able to see with his senses. And the ascetic, the one who's like a jnani, who's studying knowledge all the time and performing certain types of austerity. And then finally, the yogi who's engaged in very severe austerities, right? And mystic austerities. And so he gives a comparison there. And then in the next verse, he says, and among all the yogis, one who is a devotee is the best of all. So therefore, we should come directly to the state of becoming a devotee and not waste our time going step by step, because you could get stuck on those steps. And most people do. Okay, so therefore, coming back to 174, and it says, in the Upanishads also it is confirmed that Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, is covered by the golden glowing Hiranmayana Patrena, veil of impersonal Brahman. And when that curtain is removed by the mercy of the Lord, the real face of the Absolute is seen. So, we are covered by Mahamaya. Even if we free ourselves of the covering of Mahamaya, we still can't see the Lord face to face. We'd have to pray to the Lord like Ishopanishad is doing, to remove the veil of the Brahmajyoti, which is covering him. Actually, it's covering us, just like you can say the clouds are covering the sun, therefore I don't see the sun. But actually, the clouds are covering our eyes. The sun is shining. It's not covered by the clouds, but it looks like the clouds are covering the sun. Right? So it looks like the Brahmajyoti is covering the Lord, but actually it's covering our eyes. Right? And the Mahamaya is covering our eyes and our brain and our intelligence and everything. So it's hard enough getting free of Mahamaya, but then it's even harder to penetrate the Brahmajyoti so that you can see Krishna. So you have to get Krishna's mercy. So anything you do, you have to get Krishna's mercy, no matter what problem you're dealing with. See? So, and sometimes problems look like they're impossible to solve. Just like it looked like it was impossible for the Pandavas to defeat the Kuru army. They were way outnumbered, and there were very great fighters on the side of the Kurus, like Bhisma Pitama. It's impossible to defeat him, and Dronacharya. It was impossible for the Pandavas to defeat those two. How about all the rest? There were other great fighters, Maharathis, on the side of the Kurus, but yet they did. Why? Because they completely depended on Krishna. It was impossible for the monkey army of Sugriva to defeat the Rakshasa army of Ravana, but yet they did. Now the Rakshasa army had nuclear weapons, and the Vanaras, they didn't have nuclear weapons. They had tree trunks and big rocks and things like that. Even though they didn't have all these high-end weapons, they were able to defeat them. Why? Because they depended on Krishna. This is the main thing. Any problem you have, you should depend on Krishna. No matter how difficult that problem looks. You should have faith that eventually you will succeed. In what way? Maybe you'll never conquer your enemy, but you'll go back to Godhead. And your enemy, who is not Krishna conscious, will stay in this world. Okay, so one way or other, you're going to be successful. Either you're doubly successful by conquering your enemy and going back to Godhead, or you're ultimately successful by going back to Godhead, by completely depending on Krishna. So therefore, both ways, whether we succeed or don't succeed, we should be completely dependent on Krishna. Then we go back to Godhead. See? We shouldn't think, oh, well, we have all these weapons, just like, what's his name, Putin. Before the war started, he had about 150,000 soldiers, and they had so many tanks, and so many armored cars, and so many weapons, right? But they haven't been able to. I mean, they've lost about 100,000 men so far, either wounded or killed, and they're still fighting, and they haven't really made the big, let's say, win that they were expecting to make. They were being predicted to win in the beginning, because they had a bigger army, but therefore, whoever is depending on Krishna is going to win, either by winning the war or even losing the war. So sometimes you win the battle even though you lost, because so many people got killed that it's called a Pyrrhic victory. That although the Russians may win the war, at what cost did they win the war? It was devastating for them also, for their economy and for the number of people that died and so forth. So, even if you win sometimes, you still lose, because it sets you back so much and makes you open to be invaded by other enemies, right? So therefore, and this was, say, Putin did not clearly remember history. How is it that the Russians were able to defeat the Nazis when the Nazis invaded Russia? Because they were being supplied by the Americans. The Americans actually supplied the Russian army. Not at first, but eventually they started supplying tanks and things. Just like now, the Americans are supplying the Ukrainians, see? And the Russians don't have a supplier like that. oh, they're getting some supplies from Iran. Maybe they might get some supplies from China, but it's not to the extent that America is supplying Ukraine. And if they keep on supplying, not only America, but the Europeans, they keep on supplying Ukraine, eventually Russians are going to collapse because they won't be able to keep up. You know, whoever has the supply chain will win a war, usually. So that's something that Putin did not clearly understand. And these are mistakes that people make, right, in life. Also, how was Germany defeated? They were eventually defeated because their supply chain broke down. You know, the Allies kept bombing their supply chain, and eventually they collapsed. Right? They were not able to have enough ammunition and have enough bombs and things like that to fight off their invaders. Okay, so here it says the Supreme Person has manifold energies, out of which the internal, external, and marginal energies are specifically important. So wait a minute. The person that has energies is Krishna, you see. So he can invest those energies in the Vanara army, who have very crude weapons, and make them able to defeat the Rakshasas, who have nuclear weapons, right? And they're able to, Krishna is able to give energy to Arjuna and the Pandavas, even though 640 million people died. Most of the army of the Pandavas and the whole army of the Kauravas were killed. But yet, the survivors were very few, actually. The Pandavas survived, right? But all the sons of Dhritarashtra were killed. He just had one daughter left. And the whole army, including Bhisma, Pitama, and Dronacharya, were killed. You see. So there were very few, let's say, warriors that survived the Battle of Kurukshetra. Okay, so, and that shows how lethal were the weapons that they were using. The energy mentioned here is the external energy, as will be clear from the statements of her activities. The internal energy is there along with the absolute person, as the moonlight is there with the moon. The external energy is compared to darkness because it keeps the living entities in the darkness of ignorance. The word apasrayam suggests that this energy of the Lord is under full control. In other words, talking about Maya here. So when Vyasadeva sees Krishna, he also sees Maya that's walking behind Krishna, which is like a shadow, let's say, of the Lord. And it's not, the Lord is not Maya, Maya is another person, but Maya is behind the Lord. And he sees both of them. Then he realizes that Krishna is the controller of Maya also. This is something the Christians got wrong. The internal potency or superior energy is also Maya, but it is spiritual Maya, meaning Yoga Maya, or energy exhibited in the absolute realm. When one is under the shelter of this internal potency, the darkness of material ignorance is at once dissipated. So if we come under the control of Yoga Maya, immediately Mahamaya's hold on us is broken. Right? And even those who are Atmarama, or fixed in trance, take shelter of this Maya, or the internal energy. Devotional service, or bhakti yoga, is the function of the internal energy. Thus, there is no place for the inferior energy or material energy. In other words, if you're always engaged in bhakti yoga, you're no longer influenced at all by the inferior energy of the Lord, or Mahamaya. Just as there is no place for darkness in the effulgence of the spiritual light, such internal energy is even superior to the spiritual bliss attainable in the conception of impersonal Brahman. So what we experience in pure devotional service is much, much greater than any happiness one may experience in impersonal Brahman. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that the impersonal Brahman effulgence is also an emanation from the absolute personality of Godhead. Well, we read that. Yasya Prabha Prabhuto Jagananda Koti, 5th chapter, Brahma Samhita, 40th verse. The Parama Purusha cannot be anyone except Shri Krishna himself. In other words, the supreme person and supreme enjoyer, as will be explained in later slokas. Okay, so here we have verse 174 that explains that Vyasadeva did not only see Krishna, he saw Maya that was behind the Lord and subordinate to the Lord and under the control of the Lord. So therefore, if we have this understanding, then we become Krishna conscious, and we don't depend on anyone else, we just depend on Krishna. If we don't have this understanding, then we'll depend on, China's ruler to help, or India's ruler to help, or this one to help, or that one to help, or, like Putin is depending on these other people, right? He should depend completely on Krishna, just as Zelensky. He should depend completely on Krishna. The one who's going to completely depend on Krishna is going to be a winner. Either they'll be a 2-time winner, but for sure they're going to be a 1-time winner. That is, they'll go back to Godhead, right? A 2-time winner, they defeat the enemy as well as go back to Godhead, right? But either way, you're a winner if you depend completely on Krishna. Okay. So, we'll continue tomorrow. We'll read this purport again, 379, and go deeper into it. There's a lot more information to understand this. Are there any questions? Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Hare Krishna Maharaj, how do you have faith in Krishna?
Okay, your question is how you have faith in Krishna, right? You will only develop faith if you associate with people who have faith. And you will lose your faith by associating people who don't have faith. That's how you can have faith or lose faith. So I'm answering two sides of the question. How can you have faith in Krishna? You associate with people who have faith in Krishna. Did you understand? Let me hear you repeat that. How do you have faith in Krishna? You tell me. You have, or you associate what, with who? With people who don't have faith?
Devotees?
Yes. Then you will have faith. So then you should write down on a piece of paper, after analyzing who you're associating with, to see who you're associating with more, with people who don't have faith during the day or with people who have faith. So you're associating here in the class for about 1 hour every day. Now you have to count the other 23 hours. Who are you associating with? You should write it down on a piece of paper. Yes, Maharaj, I associated 1 hour today with devotees, and I spent 8 hours with nonsense people. Then I came back home and I associated my mom and dad who are devotees, but I also was watching some television, so that was like, how many, you have to write that down, right? You see, you have to see how many hours in a day you're actually associating with devotees. Even your mom and dad, they might not say anything spiritual to you during that time you're associating with them, but hopefully they do, right? That they're offering the food and having some kirtan, maybe reading some Bhagavad Gita in the home, right? But if there's even the association with your parents who are not giving you any spiritual association, then you have to write that down also. That although I associated with them, there was no subjects about Krishna discussed all the time I was with them. We were just talking about some vacation and playing soccer and things. So you see, you have to actually write down on a piece of paper how much you're actually associating with devotees and how much you're associating with people who are not talking or teaching you about Krishna. Then you will know whether you'll have faith or not. If you only have faith, if you only associate 1 hour a day with some people who have faith, and the rest of the time you're associating with Maya in the form of either sleep or people who don't have any reference to Krishna, then you see why you could end up becoming an atheist, because most of the time of your life you're associating with non-devotees. Now your question is, how do you have faith in Krishna? You associate with devotees more than associating with non-devotees. Right? And even associating with non-devotees, you have to associate with them on an official basis, but not on a meaningful basis. Officially means, yeah, he's a classmate, but I don't really listen to what he says. And yeah, the teacher is trying to teach, but I don't believe most of the stuff she says. If she says something that's Krishna conscious, I'll believe it. But most of the time, she's just talking nonsense. So I know that, But to pass a test, I have to, listen to this nonsense. But I wish I could go to a devotee school where I don't have to listen to nonsense at all, right? You see. So you have to write down on a piece of paper how many hours a day you're actually associating with devotees who are actually speaking about Krishna and glorifying the Lord. That's how you have faith. And if you associate most of the time with non-devotees, you'll lose your faith, guaranteed. Go ahead.
So, Hare Krishna Maharaj. So I was just wondering, like, if that mirage analogy can be applied to the Brahma Jyoti. Like, for example, people get illusions by seeing like water on the road, but
no,
it's actually
what happens is everything's going on in the mind. So even though you did tremendous austerity, and because of that, you were able to merge into the Brahma Jyoti. But you did not get clarification. You were not convinced that there's something beyond the Brahma Jyoti. You're convinced that there's nothing beyond it. You're going to fall down because you have incomplete knowledge. If you attain Brahma Jyoti and you know there's something beyond it, but you just don't know about it, you can progress if you have association with a genuine devotee. But it's going to be hard because in the Brahma Jyoti, everyone is in an impersonal state, including yourself. So there's not going to be much chance to associate with a devotee. So you would have to fall down, realize what happened, and then become convinced of associating only with devotees. Just like Ajamila, right? He had a second chance. In that second chance, he gave up associating with his wife and all nonsense people, and he started chanting Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya and meditating on Krishna in Haridwar, or in Rishikesh, I think, or Haridwar or Rishikesh, one or the other. And he eventually went back to Godhead. He gave up the bad association. But this is because he was given a second chance.
So is it? Can we call this as an illusion for Mayavadi? That because the real is Krishna.
Any misconception is an illusion.
Okay.
Yeah. Any misconception. So little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Yeah. Okay, we'll stop there. Haribol. Where's the Prabhupada? We'll continue tomorrow. This is an interesting part of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
There are two questions we have to answer.
Yeah, well, everything's going to be answered. You have to be a little patient. You see how powerful the Ishopanishad is. Very powerful.
Compact book, but a lot of things.
Huh?
It's a very small book.
Very small book, but it's got a lot of answers. One of these days I have to come in with a wheelbarrow with the whole Bhagavatam. Actually, we should have a constant exhibit of the Bhagavatam here, the whole Bhagavatam. somewhere here. Go ahead, you can start now.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma
Bandhana Mate
Mandomui Sabadana Mate
Jara Prasade Bhai E Baba Toriya Jai
Janara Prasade Bhai He Baba Toriya Jai
Krishna Prapti Ho Jeha Ho Te
Krishna Prapti Oya Oite
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Kya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Ya
Arana Koriya Mane Asha
Arana Koriya Mane Asa
Shri Guru Charane Rati He Sutama Gati
Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttamagati
Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha
Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asa
चक्षुदान दिलो जे जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
Chakshudan Dila Jai Janme Janme Prabhu Se
दिव्य गायने में प्रकाशित
Divya Jnane Prakashito
भक्ति जहाँ होते आदि आदि नाशक जाते
Prema Bhakti Jaha Vete Avidya Vinasa Jate
वेदी गाय जहाँ रचरित
Vedega Janara Charito
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आदमद नर बंधु
Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu
लोकेना लोके रजवाना
Lokena Lokera Jivana
आहा प्रभु को रोया देह मोरे बाधा छाया
Aha Prabhu Kora Doya Deya Mori Pada Jaya
एबेदाई गुशु त्रिभुवाना
Ebeyas Sukti Bhuvana
प्रभु पाता पिता पवाना
Prabhupada Patita Pavana
प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा जय प्रभुपदा
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
नमो विष्णु दाय कृष्ण प्रसाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांता Swami Nityanamine.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vestaya Buddhare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Sashatyarine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Vaskatya Rizatarine
Krishna Chaitanya Gauratyana Nirvita Gura Gura Shivachari Bhattadrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Nitai Gora Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gora Hari Bol
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajika Chasta Tarasatara Shri Srimadi's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shukho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gogopi Nath Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanande All glories to the assembled devotee, all glories to the assembled devotee, all glories to the assembled, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaura Premanande Hari Namo Vishnu Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Vicharani Visesa Sanyavadi Paskati. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great honor and reverence.
By him,
His grace one can cross
Krishna
the
and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection, fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord of birth after birth. From him exciting problem moves. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures mimic his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of myth, the vern of the poor, unto me. Give us the shade of your feet, you famous widow with 3 worlds.